Thank you, Madam Chair. I've certainly enjoyed watching my Democrat colleagues convulse dramatically between two opposing stances. Drill more, drill less, drill more, drill less. Mr. Worth, you surely remember in October of last year when you were asked repeatedly by Democrats to commit to less drilling and less production. You remember that, yes?
Congressman, I remember it well.
So today we've seen the same contradicting messages as one would expect, and we wonder how on earth did we get to this point where there's such a clear mismatch between supply and demand and very clear underinvestment in oil and gas production. And what a mystery this is. What could have possibly caused this? Stopping federal leases? No. Delaying or outright canceling pipeline permits? No, impossible. Or the president literally promising he would end the industry, and we wonder why capital isn't just sprinting toward oil and gas exploration and production. Analysts say we need an additional oil and gas investment of $225 billion globally by 2030 if we are to avoid an energy crisis. Let me remind you, people die from lack of energy, and in large numbers. I hope all that green compassion I always hear about has some answers for that. And so the question is, how do we create the conditions so that your investors change their minds and actually want to spend this additional money? None of your companies are on track right now to make up that $225 billion. Why not? Many reasons, but I want to talk about the cost of capital and the influence of ESG. President Biden is hiking up the cost of capital, weaponizing banking rules like reversing the fair access rule, doubling down on guidance that would make it more costly to be a bank that lends to fossil fuel industries. Democrats over at Financial Services are helping them, proposing to charge banks a surcharge for lending to companies like yours. Then you have the deliberate actions for Democrats that help activist ESG investors, a SEC that puts its thumbs on the scales to promote investments in unreliable green energy instead of reliable oil and gas. This is the same SEC who's aiding activist investors who want to use the proxy advisory process to force companies out of oil and gas. Folks over at Exxon know what that's all about. So my question, I want to start with Mr. Sheffield. This weaponization of the financial industry has had and will have an impact on investment in more oil production. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, in the past and in the future.
Mr. Lawler, same question.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. I think just from what I can gather from the markets at this point, BP has not had any issues attracting capital and maintains a low cost of capital going forward.
Mr. Worth, same question.
Congressman, there are no shortage of efforts underway that appear to be intended to constrain access to capital for this industry.
I appreciate that, and I want to make some other points here. Let's get some facts straight because the future depends on us getting this right. We can continue down this renewables-only path and keep watching our prices skyrocket while also failing to meet demand and also doing next to nothing to reduce emissions. Or we can deal with some hard facts, and the facts are this. American oil and gas production is cleaner than OPEC's, it's cleaner than Russia's, by a lot. The fact is that global energy demand will increase by 50% by 2050, and oil and gas is still expected to make up the lion's share of the production. You cannot change these facts. The fact is that renewables will never meet that demand, never. To meet the renewables-only climate goals, you'd have to mine lithium 2,000% more. You'd have to mine indium 8,000% more. Cobalt production will need to grow 300 to 800% more. For a wind farm to produce the same amount of energy as a nuclear plant, you need 100 times more land. You need 30,000 tons of iron ore, 50,000 tons of concrete, and 900 tons of plastic blades that cannot be recycled. That is not green, and by the way, it also doesn't work when the wind stops blowing. And here's the most important fact. If American natural gas quadrupled in the next decade in exports, which is entirely possible according to industry experts, we would do something amazing. We would displace coal around the world. Here's another fact. About half of global emissions are from foreign coal. Displace that coal with cleaner gas and you reduce emissions 60%. And wow, just like that, you solve the energy crisis. And by the way, reduced emissions far, far more than the foolish $10 trillion Green New Deal ever could. By the way, to our witnesses, thank you for being here, taking abuse. But that's the argument you should be making. Instead of behaving like you have Stockholm Syndrome, like your civility to the radical environmentalists in Congress and this administration will one day get them to like you. They will never like you. Please stand up for your work, your employees, and your consumers. Speak the truth. Don't pander to what they want on the left. Because Americans need you and billions around the world who want to rise out of poverty and live a life of prosperity need you. Thank you, and I yield back.